Hello, I'm Clark Farley. And that was Denise Vasaro if she was here tonight, which she is not. So you're going to be hearing from me and our special guest this week. This week on our 20-minute real estate briefing, we're going to do a topic from years ago, actually. The topic will have to do with buying foreclosed bank-owned properties. Very hot topic back then, and very possibly another hot topic coming up. But we'll be bringing our guest on to give us some insight into that. But before we get into that, don't tell Denise or anybody else. I'm going to do my part of the intro and then try to do her part. My part of the introduction to these briefings always has to do with what this 20-minute thing is all about. And what we did was looked at social distancing at the time, looked at the technology, and said, okay, we'd like to reach out to people, help them learn the ins and outs of buying and selling real estate, keeping the traditional practices, but embracing the stepped-up pace. We actually used to do in-person real estate buyer seminars, and those things ran like 60 minutes. And it was very comprehensive and taught A to Z. But we realized that, wait a minute, no, that's a long time ago. So now each week we come to everybody with a, oops, I got a comment, with a different topic each week, 20 minutes, we share our experience and our insights. And as Denise might say, we're live from Randall Realtors in Westerly, Rhode Island, and we invite you to spend a little time as we share our insights and experiences, tips and tactics acquired over quite a few years. Our goal, help you become a better buyer and a skilled seller. Remember to hit the subscribe, housekeeping kind of thing. You could be watching this on YouTube. Hit subscribe while you're there. That'll help us see that you're there. And on Facebook, we'll take a like, why not? We're also on Twitter a little bit, but we're on Instagram every week. The Coastal New England Real Estate team does a thing we call Where in South County Are We? Where we put up pictures of landmarks in the area and invite people to tell us where the heck on the planet it is. If you have any suggestions for topics, send them in on comments. I see some comments. Okay. Martha Jean, thank you. Good evening to you as well. Let us know where you're viewing us from, if you do. In the chat box to your left on the screen, you'll be able to do that. I'm saying hello to everyone. So tonight, foreclosed bank-owned properties, aka REOs. Currently, as I mentioned, they're rare. In fact, I checked today in the state MLS for Rhode Island, there are a total of 6 foreclosed properties listed as actively for sale. There's a lot to know about it, and that's why we've got Rick on tonight. My background in it is that I've done quite a few years working with the entities that traffic in foreclosed properties. I like that joke, by the way. And it includes places like Wells Fargo. Oh, Manny is in the house. Hey, Manny, from Mono County. Okay. Way to make the sole host even more nervous. All right, thank you. So I've got the background on the listing REO properties, but that's such a big job that I work with another agent on that. We rarely get the time to work with buyers. That is why we are going to bring on Rick Wusick. He's an agent in our office here in Westerly, and he's had considerable experience working with buyers who are bound and determined to buy themselves a REO property. So he'll be sharing some of his tips and tactics. And back to the beginning of this whole project is the idea: if you're a buyer out there, you can read books, you can watch videos, but Rick will be sharing his experiences in the real world with helping buyers buy an REO. So I guess without further ado, whatever that means, I will say, hey, Rick, what's up?
Hi, everybody. How you doing tonight?
I am fine, thank you.
That's
And
good.
I speak on behalf of the people who are watching fine. Um, you heard the intro?
I did.
Did
I
that come
did.
through okay? Okay, good.
Ario's, Clark and I work in the same office. We kind of hang out in the penthouse, as we call it, the second floor. And, I watched the show online, and I said, Clark, one week you should talk about what you're an expert in. And you are an expert in REOs, foreclosures. Clark, tell them what REO stands for, because a lot of people don't understand what that means.
That stands for, and it won't make any sense, but it stands for real estate owned.
Right. Or otherwise known as bank owned, who is
Yeah.
the owner of the property. Yep.
You know,
Um,
we tend to get questions like that, Rick. That's a good point because the general term, people will say foreclosed. Hey, I want to buy a foreclosed property or a bank-owned property. In general, they're all one type. There's one, we may have time for it, but we may touch on a certain type of foreclosure that's different from most, referred to as the HECM. And that's the kind of thing that why you're here. And I wrote in my notes for the show tonight was especially when you're dealing with one of these HECM type foreclosures, you better have an agent who knows what they're doing. So
I find that, the first and foremost, the most important thing when you're a buyer is to have an agent that is experienced at buying foreclosed properties. And then they can walk you through the landmine fields of REO properties, the right paperwork, the timing, how to write a good offer, what to expect when you're looking. I don't know how many times I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to buy this house," and it's because of the price point, and they have no idea. They think that it's $100,000 house and they can move right into it, and a lot of times these houses are not even livable. That's the reason why they're foreclosed. People haven't taken care of them. They're been abandoned or abused or
yeah.
things stolen from them. So
Well, being in our office and this show being all about, well, we're about South County, but also southeastern Connecticut. What do you find the thing when you got into this business? What was that, about 5, 6 years ago, or
7 years now. 7 years. Yeah. Yeah.
well,
Time flies and having fun. I'll tell you that.
so when you did get into it from your previous field, what did you find even before you hit that REO space? What did you find was the most enjoyable part about being an agent?
Well, being an agent, I used to think when I first got into it, how nice it was to make the connections with people and have relationships, different forms of relationships, and then, get them to their goal, home ownership, which is America's goal of everyone that lives in America. It's a dream that most people have and should get and achieve very easily. But you need to have the right tools in order to get there. And education.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that because our Denise and I each week and the foundation for what we do with these briefings is talk about the team that a smart buyer assembles a team, and the head of that team, it would be their agent, their buyer's agent, because it's the kind of thing that looks simple to buy a house. Well, let's go buy a house.
Yeah.
But the hard parts are secret and very hard. So the idea of helping people, as you're saying, is the first part of it, and the rest is getting the skill and the experience, which turns some of our hair gray.
And the thing is too, it's a very emotional a process to go through to begin with. It's very financially cumbersome. Many people who have never done any of it. Some people have done it, but haven't done it in 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So, it's like any consumer product. You need to be educated to what you're buying. You wouldn't go and buy a car just because somebody says, "Hey, this is a good car. Buy this car." You're going to do your research. You're going to look online. You're going to compare a Ford to a Chevy to a Honda, and the same thing with having an agent and buying a house, you need to have the education and the knowledge behind you before you make it. Everyone should have an informed decision and knowledge of the process they're going through. Nobody should ever buy any product, whether it's a house or real estate, a lot, without having the knowledge base and the trust in the person that's giving you that knowledge.
Yeah, that's what we say at the beginning of almost every show, is that every week we talk to buyers and sellers on a point of interest. But the people who come here to watch these briefings are the kind of buyers that we as agents would always want to have, which is an informed, like you say, informed, focused kind of buyer, because you do need to get the basic information, and then be able to get the agent that will guide you through as you said in the beginning, the minefield, because it's usually fun, and we talk about reducing stress, but things don't always go smoothly. Speaking of,
you look at the criteria, the most stressful situations in your life, right up there in the top 5. After getting married or losing a spouse or death of a family member, is buying and moving into a house.
I believe number 1 was public speaking.
That's a phobia.
Oh, okay. Well,
and you're doing great, by the way, Clark. You're doing just fine. Everything's really well.
Do you remember your first foreclosure for?
I do, like it was yesterday. I felt like a blind child walking through the streets, and I had no idea where I was and what I was doing. But with good guidance, good education, with the people I work with in the office I work with, I was able to secure my first foreclosed property. And it's a process, and it's something that you really need to know how to do as an agent. Never mind, it's totally different than buying a regular house or buying a regular real estate property. It's totally different. The paperwork's different. Is double, like any governmental process, which Fannie Mae is, or some of these banks are all governed by, the rules and regulations of the federal government set forth of banking rules. And so you have to know how to do that and how to present those offers properly. I don't know how many times I have people come to me and say, I want to buy a bank-owned property. I'll be able to get this great house at a great deal and move in and make and have my dream house. And and they think it's a simple 1, 2, 3 procedure, and it's really not.
You anticipated one of my notes here, that it's one thing for you as a real estate agent to learn, the ins and outs of the process. And yet there's that whole skill set that you would have to have with any buyer for any property, which is understanding what they're going through, how they're reacting to things. And so you've got kind of a double balance going.
Well, and I notice nowadays too, you do have people with some knowledge, and the internet, as great and wonderful as a tool as it is, can also be our biggest enemy, in that a little knowledge can be dangerous, because if it's not perceived properly or interpreted properly, it can lead you down a path of thinking that you know more than you do. And there's procedural processes that you need to go through in buying any house, never mind a foreclosed house. Back to REO properties, are you qualified to buy a house? Number 1, are you qualified to buy a foreclosed home? Are you qualified?
That's a good point, because you and I talked earlier about that. While it has changed in the past, there have been plenty of houses that were simply as is, that you walk in and without a contractor, wait a minute, that needs work. So there's certain types of financing that can be problematic if the buyer's agent doesn't let the buyer.
Not even that. How about the fact that people think, I can buy this house, I can do all the work. That's not going to be a problem. I love those guys. That's really a great idea. I'm a person that likes to do a lot of the work myself, but I can't buy a house if it doesn't have a functioning heating system, walls, just sheetrock walls, the right flooring, a working well, a properly functioning septic system. If those things aren't functioning, yeah, I may have the money to be able to pay for those things, but no bank is going to give me the money to do that without a specific type of loan.
Yeah, yeah. And that usually 203K, I think, is the term for the renovation type product.
And rehab loans.
And where our team approach with buyers is, okay, you get a lender, but it's funny about the REOs. In keeping with what you're saying about people think, well, I can handle this. 203s are not, they don't work the way some people think that they work.
I know, and to be able to find a contractor that'd be willing to take that on, the paperwork to do the 203K, the processes, to be able to start the project and have a minimum of 10% of your own money put into it before they even get the first check from the bank to pay for to finish it. So it's almost like a building loan, but even more convoluted.
As a listing agent, I've seen more than I've wanted to see in terms of buyers with all the best intent looking at a house and not realizing that they're protected like any other contract to be able to inspect, and the deposits are protected. But when you get involved in that process, it costs you money that isn't refundable. Inspections, as you said, the idea of lining up contractors because Uncle Bill isn't qualified or usually isn't eligible to.
Right. You have to be on a list of lenders. You have to be able to do the paperwork.
Arm's length.
Yep. And you touched base a little bit on. I just lost my train of thought on an avenue as far as the type of loans goes. A 203K. It's very the inspections. You're going to get an inspection on a house. Are you going to shell out $1,000 and find out that you can't buy a house?
Yeah.
Are you one of those people that are first-time homeowners that are looking to save a little bit of money in your pocket to do the renovations? So you're putting less money down on a down payment. You're only putting 3%, 3.5%, 5% down. And then all of a sudden now you realize you're $1,000 into it after inspections. And the bank says, sorry, you don't qualify for that type of house with this type of mortgage.
Well, I think that's a good point because, as buyer's agents, we're charged with making sure the buyers, especially new buyers, are familiar with the landscape, someplace they've never been. But now you're talking the lumpier part of the landscape when you're dealing with foreclosures because they're pretty upfront. You're buying it as is, but they're just a little bit more complicated. And
I just want to touch base real quickly because I know we're going to be running out of time here soon. With you being a selling agent, you have zero knowledge of the condition of the property. So me as a buyer's agent, I ask you questions, you're not going to have any idea. So I have to relay that to my buyers. And they're like, what do you mean they don't know? Well, because they don't have any knowledge. They never own the property. They don't live in the property. You may or may not have done pre-inspections, to figure out exactly what does and does not work. So that's very difficult on the sell side too. And to deal with buyers agents that aren't educated into the processes and the details of a foreclosed property.
Yeah, it's always a shame when you see people who just you want to say, "Hey, no, go get yourself a regular house." Now, I'm talking in terms of how it was back in 207, 210, and they were not there by any stretch of the imagination. It may not go back there, but there's always that fascination. And one of the unfortunate beliefs is that you buy a foreclosure because they'll sell it 50 cents on the dollar, and no, they don't, because that's why I'm there. The value is market value. You're right. Holy smoke, where is the time going? Any advice to buyers who are hearing this and saying,
get a great agent that knows what they're doing, and don't be afraid to ask them questions to know what they're doing. They should be educating you as well as they should have the knowledge base before they enter in any contract.
Yeah, you do need to get an experienced agent, and not just in terms of tenure in the business, but experience in the process that you're engaged in.
Right.
So, well, that takes us to the 20-minute mark. Thank you very much for joining us, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I will be talking to you again. Okay.
All right. Have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Now, somehow I'm supposed to check us out by saying thank you. Come again. Denise says this part normally, so I will not attempt to reproduce what she says, other than join us next week, because next Wednesday we'll be on at 5:30. But do the YouTube and the Instagram part, if you would. Check us out there, follow us, and all like that. So I will say thank you for joining us, and we will see you again. I will click